All right, we are looking at how sides are actually forming now. We have looked at compromises that are leading, let's rephrase that, that are trying to lighten the tension between the North and the South. We had the Missouri Compromise, we had the Compromise of 1850, and then we had the Kansas Nebraska Act. Not really a compromise, but both sides were saying, hey, we're okay with popular sovereignty choosing slavery. We saw that the Dred Scott decision, that if you were of African descent, then that you were not considered an actual citizen, which is nullifying the Missouri Compromise and expanding slavery, actually. And so now we're kind of at a pinnacle point. Tensions have built between the North and the South over the tariff, over slavery, and now we're kind of at the blowing of that. We are at the catalyst of that. So in this lesson, you'll be able to do quite a few things. You'll be able to explain the significance of Jefferson Davis or Jeff Davis and Abraham Lincoln. You will be able to explain how the role of expansion of slavery has caused the Civil War. You will be able to explain the importance of Fort Sumter. And then you are going to look at the inaugural addresses of both Jefferson Davis and Abraham Lincoln, and you have to be able to analyze them. How do they feel about liberty, quality, unity, and the government? Those are the four pieces that we look at inside that. And you will be able to look once again at political parties, because we're going to have a new party form, the Republican Party, the actual Republican Party we know of today. And again, other points of views that are driving the political parties. So we're going to dive right in. So through a series of very confusing events between the Whigs and the Democrats and what are known as Free Soilers, a new party is going to emerge. So the Republican Party, this is the modern Republican Party. So this is the Republican Party we have today, is formed. This party is actually formed after the Kansas and Nebraska Act. So once the Kansas-Nebraska Act is passed, the Free Soilers, the Democrats, and the Whigs start to divide amongst themselves over slavery and anti-slavery. And the anti-slavery part of those political parties form the Republican Party. They are mainly created to stop the spread of slavery. So this is not about ending slavery altogether. It's about stopping the spread of it. So we have looked at three compromises: Missouri Compromise, Compromise of 1850, and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. They were all about the expansion of slavery, not getting rid of slavery where it already existed, but the expansion of it. So think that in your mind. It's not about getting rid of slavery. It's about, is it going to spread to these new states? And that's what all those compromises are about. And those compromises kind of contradicted each other a little bit in there. Okay, so the Republican Party did not want to outlaw slavery, but they want to stop the spread of slavery to these new states out west. That's their main goal. In 1858, Abraham Lincoln, who is a Republican, expresses that he feels like slavery is a moral wrong when he's debating Senator Douglas. This Douglas is the same Douglas that wanted that railroad to go through Illinois, to go through Chicago, that kind of prompts popular sovereignty there in the Kansas-Nebraska territories. And so Abraham Lincoln has expressed, before he's even thinking about running for president, that he does believe that slavery is morally wrong. So this is already out there as he decides he's going to run for president. So this is the election of 1850. I think I'm going to come back to that. Abraham Lincoln is going to be elected president. He is the 16th president in the election of 1860. He only wins 40% of the popular vote. That means only 40% of the United States, the people of the United States, actually wanted him to be president. And you can see a straight divide on who elected him and who elected him and who did not elect them. So we already can see that these red states, California and Oregon, are all Republican. So they're going to vote for Lincoln. These are all free states. You're going to see in the green that they don't vote for Lincoln. They're going to vote for another guy. But they are all aligning with the actual compromises that we looked at. And then we have these states right here, even Missouri, they're going to become border states. They're not going to make a true decision about where they stand, which I find interesting because Missouri is a slave state, but when it comes to Civil War, they won't decide. So the green will become the Confederate States of the United States, and the red will stay the United States. So I'm just pointing that out so you can see a straight correlation between who votes for Abraham Lincoln and the sides of the Civil War. So sides have been chosen. Because Abraham Lincoln is elected, because he is already very outspoken about his decision about slavery being morally wrong, and as he's running on a Republican platform stating that they're not going to expand slavery, South Carolina actually secedes the Union. It leaves the United States of America and it forms its own country. Along with that, 6 other states are going to join. So it is Lincoln's election that causes South Carolina to leave. South Carolina is going to form the the Confederate States of America. So let's look at Lincoln's inaugural speech. So an inaugural speech, you saw this. We were actually home for this speech that President Trump gave. It is a speech that a president gives as they are coming into office. So the dates were different when Lincoln was elected, but for us, the election happens in November, and then beginning of January, the president takes office. And as he takes office, when he steps into that role and becomes president, he gives an inaugural speech. So Lincoln's first inaugural speech, he mentions 3 things. That the states could, no state, I wanted to make sure I worded this right, no state can legally leave the Union, which means that if you secede or leave the United States, it is illegal. It's a crime. So he is saying in this inaugural speech, you cannot leave the United States. He is also arguing that it's unjust for the forming of the Confederate States of America to happen. He's saying if you're leaving the United States, you're joining the Confederate States of America, that is unjust. It is not right. It's not fair. You can't do it. And third, he is arguing that despite our ideas about the tariff and about slavery, we are still the United States of America. We are still one nation, and we have to figure this out. And so he finds it very, very wrong for the South to form its own country. So we have the Confederate States. 7 states lead the Union. South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. So our red states here, I don't know what our next slide is. Okay. Our red states are the Confederate States of America. They are the Confederate States of America. They are their own country. Their president now is Jefferson Davis. Our United States of America stays up here. We're going to call them the Union. Okay, so anything blue is the Union. It is the United States of America. So think about that. This really, really happened. Like, this really happened. This state of Texas left the United States and it formed its own government. Very similar to that of America fighting against Great Britain and forming its own government. They had their own constitution, their own laws, their own president, their own Congress, their own Senate, their own flag. So they truly left the United States, and it started a massive war here in the United States against United States people, against America. So we looked at Abraham Lincoln's inaugural speech. Well, Jefferson Davis is going to have one too because he became president of the Confederate States of America. He's going to argue that the Declaration of Independence actually gives people the right to abolish a government. Remember, we see abolish to end slavery, but the word abolish is just to end. So we use abolitionism as a term to end slavery, but to abolish, you can abolish anything. It's just to get rid of it. And so Jefferson Davis is saying that Declaration of Independence, what we wrote against Great Britain to form our own country, actually tells people you should abolish the government when it stops working for the reason it was formed. This right here is his reasoning. The United States had stopped working for what it was formed for. And so here what I have in green is the Declaration of Independence. He is saying that that the Union has stopped establishing justice. They've stopped ensuring domestic tranquility. We saw those phrases with the Whiskey Rebellion. Domestic means here, tranquility means peace. So the United States is no longer encouraging peace within its own people. It has not provided a common defense. It has not promoted or encouraged the general welfare of its people. And it has not secured the blessing of liberty to ourselves or our prosperity. And so because of that, he is saying that they have the right to leave the Union. And this also, I just want to clarify that some people are going to believe that the United States was formed by the states, and so the states have the right to leave. Others are going to believe that since the states have joined and they've signed a contract, essentially, that constitution, they cannot leave. And so there's kind of a difference in idea there as well. So the Civil War is going to begin. So Lincoln is elected, which causes secession. Cause and effect there. Cause, Lincoln is elected. Secession is the effect. Now, the Civil War, the actual spark or the catalyst of the Civil War is going to be the bombing of Fort Sumter. So Fort Sumter is a Union fort. So it is a fort for the United States of America, but it is in South Carolina. So it is thus, is it South Carolina's? Is it the Confederate States of America? Or is it the United States of America? So that's where the argument kind of comes from. So it is a federal fort of the United States of America, but it's located right in the heart of the Confederate States of America. Lincoln is going to order Union troops to peacefully deliver supplies to its fort. So it's operating as a fort for the Union, United States of America, but it is right in the heart of the Confederacy. So Lincoln says, hey, send all of this supplies to our troops that are in the Confederacy. April 1861, so about a year later, Confederate soldiers are actually going to fire upon the fort. So outside Confederate soldiers, because they have their own military too, are firing upon that Union fort inside the Confederacy. That right there, that event is going to be the start of the Civil War. So they are actually bombing that fort. That right there, that picture is the start of the Civil War. So now Civil War has happened. After the fighting at Fort Sumter, 4 more states joined the Confederacy. So that kind of pushes it overboard into what we know of as the Confederacy. That's going to be Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So now we have truly formed our sides. We have the Union, the United States of America, and we have the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America. Abraham Lincoln is their president. They are anti-slavery because now the tariff doesn't really matter this much. And the Confederate States of America are the South. Jefferson Davis is their president, and they are pro-slavery. They are fighting for states' rights to keep slavery within their region. Okay, the next lesson is going to be all the battles of the Civil War.